Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jenny, and my presentations for today is from the book named Ministerial Ethics, Moral Formation of the Church Leaders, second edition by Joey Trull and James E. Carter. And I'll be speaking from chapter 5, Minister Colleagues. I would like to start with something that is very important in ministry, which is collegiality. So the writer starts the chapter with some incidents that produce disunity or conflict in the church. And as he continued, we see that ministry is not something we do alone. Ministry is never a solitary task. It is always done in partnership with others, and it is not about competing for influence or recognition. Instead, it's more about working together, side by side, with church leaders, staff, fellow ministers, and even professionals outside of the church. And all of that for the sake of God's mission. So indeed, it is really wide working as a minister. And when we learn to treat one another as colleagues rather than competitors, we build trust, unity, and strength. That will be the focus of this chapter 5 that I will be presenting today. And the first point is church leaders and staff. And we will talk of the church leaders and staff, and we will see about the relationships with church leaders and staff. In every relationship, trust is the basic foundation. So as here, trust is absolutely essential. And once trust is broken, the effects are painful and lasting. And sometimes, in the worst case, it can even lead to forced terminations of a minister. And the chapter that I've been reading also mentioned about these forced terminations again and again, and its side effect or bad effect of it, and how can we prevent it. Because regarding the broken trust in the relationship of church leaders and staff, this forced termination became, as the result, more common eventually. It's became more common nowadays. So the writers warn us about this, and he also provides some statistic of this forced termination in the chapter. It is a very, very painful thing for the church. The forced termination, it affect not only to the minister who is being forced to leave, but also to the church itself and also to the whole congregation. So there's no win. It is a loss in all aspects. So we have to keep the relationship strong and healthy within the church leaders and staff so that we will avoid unwanted consequences. That is why integrity, honesty, transparency must be at the center of every decision we make as leaders in the ministry. Collegiality with leaders is not just about being friendly. It is about sharing responsibility, respecting one another, and putting the missions of the church above our personal agenda, above our personal preference, and so on. So this is about church leaders. And the same thing applies when we work with church staff. In the Bible, we have a very good example in sharing responsibility within a ministry. Like Moses,
The only advice I can give is God must be with you. What you should do is represent your people before the Lord. Then look among the people for capable men, the God-fearing ones, men who are honest, trustworthy, and you will name them chiefs of 1,000, 100, of 50, and of 10.
And he learned to share responsibility to the chosen leaders among the people. So minister today must also avoid trying to carry all the burden and all the work of the ministry alone. We can share it to our staff members because they are not just assistant. They are also the colleagues. They are also called and gifted for the ministry. And when ministers promote teamwork rather than competitive spirit in the ministry, as the entire church becomes healthier and stronger. My presentation have 3 sections, and this is the first section, and it is about church leaders and stuff. Whether you get the point or not, we can test it with this sample test.
Well done!
So the second point is fellow minister. So collegiality also extends to our relationships with others ministers. This means respecting predecessors who came before us and walking humbly with our contemporaries, which mean those who are those whom we are working together with in the ministry, and preparing the way for those who will come after us. In the ministry, there are people who work before us, and there are who will be handed the work in the future from us. So we have to honor the elders, the retired ministers, for their years of service and the wisdom that they can share to the next generation. But sometimes ministers fall into a trap of comparing themselves with others, competing for recognitions or success. Like, if we compare the success that we got in our time, and if we compare the success that our forefathers they got in their time, there is very few chances of getting a good result. Instead of that, competition only weakens our witness to the gospel. Instead of competition, if we do cooperation, that will reflect the gospel in our life. And when we work together, we show that ministry is not about one person, or it is not just about a position. It is about God's missions across generations. So fellow minister, this is the second point of the presentation.
Wow.
The third point of the presentation will be the wider community. So collegiality is not limited to relationships inside the church. Ministers are also called to practice it with others, leaders, and professionals in the wider community. In these areas, ministers are seen as professionals among professionals, but the uniqueness of this role is that we carry the message of Christ. So this is the uniqueness of the role of minister. So professionalism in ministry is about compassion, humility, and servant leadership. When we cooperate with leaders from different denominations or work fields respectfully in the community, we can show that the gospel is bigger than any boundary. And this kind of collegiality demonstrates that ministry is about partnership and not a competition. And when we live this way, the church grows stronger, and we can shine the light of Christ more clearly in the world, and not only inside of the church, but to the outer world too. To summarize all of this, collegiality in ministry means treating others as partners, not competitors. And it starts with church leaders and staff, and it continues with our fellow ministers across generations, and it extends into our wider communities. To do so, we have to go by trust, integrity, respect, humility, and cooperation. When we embrace this way of ministry, we'll be able to live out Christ's versions of unity, and together we can do far more for the kingdom of God than we ever could if we try alone. This is my presentation for today. Thank you for listening. God bless everyone.